What's going on, Titans fans? Waking up, everybody. Thanks for joining us. If you're checking out us for the first time, welcome into the Morning Glory Show. I'm your co-host as always, Jake Robertson. Follow me at Glory Days Sports. I'm joined by my other co-host, as always, B Will at B Will TFTV and TFTV Sports. And then on my other side, we got Jonathan Miller at Esports Valen, also on TikTok at All Things Titans. How you doing today, boys? How you doing today, Jonathan?
Good, man. The boys are back. We're all back together, man. It's been
Indeed.
several weeks, it feels like.
It might be even longer.
Yeah.
We're
Who
back.
knows? Who knows at this point? It's like the season ended and we all were like, oh my gosh, let's just slam the reset button here. But it's good. Good to be back.
What about you, B Will?
Yeah, real good to be back, man. Shout out to not shout out, but prayers to the victims in the crash that happened last night. Really, really sad stuff. So that's been on my mind since that happened. I was like, wow, it's just crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Yeah, we're going to talk some football today. We got the Senior Bowl going down over there in Mobile. So we'll be talking about that. The Titans, they make another front office addition in Scott Owen, who was he was on staff last season, but they make the job official this year. And I think it's going to bring those analytics and that side of what Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker, they're wanting to bring the Titans into the 21st century, because that's something that we've so far been missing for a very long point in time. I guess really ever since John Robinson said that he is the analytics department. And we've come so far since then. But when you look at Scott Cohen and what he's done in his 33 years in the NFL, he's been a part of a lot of winning cultures. And me and Jonathan talked about it last week, is they are bringing in all new pieces from around the league. Most of them have a Super Bowl under their belt. They might not be the key component of why that was a part of the team, but they're bringing in a winning culture from little pieces of everywhere. And you're hoping that can resonate amongst a new team, and the Titans can have their own kind of future put ahead of them that's significant and individualistic in its own respective ways. So Scott Cohen coming out of Baltimore for really the last decade. I think he's only part of 2 losing seasons in that, I think, 9-year stretch, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Before that was with Tampa Bay for a few seasons. Didn't have great success over there. New York Jets. Does anybody remember when the New York Jets were good? The early 2000s.
Yeah.
He was part of great success with that. I think I think the butt fumble and all that stuff that really ended it. But I think only had 1 losing season there. And then with the Philadelphia Eagles for another half decade. Dude has like 6 losing seasons in like 33 years. And a lot of that is on the game preparation side of things and the analytics driven behind that, which is something Brian Callahan struggled with mightily as a rookie head coach last season, in my opinion. I think there was times that he improved down the stretch with that side of things, but it could be what was going on in his ear as well. What are your guys' thoughts on just kind of Scott Cohen and the additions that this team has made with Mike Borgonzi going into Scott Cohen, Reggie McKenzie, Vol Nation back in town, and then Dave Ziegler, the former Raiders GM as well. A lot of different pieces. What are your thoughts on that, Jonathan?
Yeah, well, the first thing I think of when I look at all this experience is Miss Amy is not playing around. She wants a very different front office. And this is probably also led by Chad Brinker, who has been very upfront in saying, like, hey, I don't have all the answers, and I'm not the sole guy who's going to make all the decisions. I want to be surrounded by, smart individuals. Like the Scott Cohen promotion really is what it is, because he was a consultant last season, similar to what Vrabel was doing for Cleveland. Bringing him in, essentially giving him the title that he had with the Ravens. I think it's director of football research or something like that. He's an analytics-based guy, right? Like, he spent a ton of time as an assistant GM. He spent a time as a director of pro personnel. Like, he's been all over the front office. But he's an analytics guy, and that's who Chad Brinker is. So to bring all of these pieces into the front office, I mean, this is the most stacked front office of experience that the Titans have ever had. And I think it's a good thing for not only for the Titans, but it should be really reassuring to the Titans fan base to know that, it looks like we'll probably be picking the first overall pick for the first time in franchise history, for the first time in Titans history. And you're doing so with a absolute, a slew of experience on the front office. So you don't just have the young guys who are at the front of the table there making the decisions, but you also have a ton of experience they're surrounded by. I mean, just watching like Mike Borgonzi and Dave Ziegler, like, standing next to each other at the Senior Bowl was like, this feels strange. It feels like I'm looking at two GMs, and that's because it is. Like Borgonzi getting his shot, and then of course Ziegler, who's been a GM himself. So it's encouraging as a fan to see all of this experience. On one side of the coin, fans are like, Jesus, like, are we just going to keep hiring everybody? And at this point, it's like, whatever you want this front office to shape and look like, you've got it. You've got every stretch of experience you can possibly think of under one roof. And obviously, we won't know how good some of these people are. Half of these dudes were failed general managers. So on one side of the coin, you're like how excited are you for these guys who have not been able to get it done in the past? But aside from that, many of them know what they're doing. They know what the preparation needs to look like. They know how to pull this thing together. And obviously, the young talent in Borgonzi and Brinker, like, these are two guys that you're happy to see, or at least I'm happy to see, lead that. And so we'll see. Judgment Day is going to come in late April, and we're going to see what these guys can do, obviously through free agency as well. They got to build this team, and it's going to be interesting to see. What do they do? Do they go, veteran bridge quarterback and still draft a quarterback? Do they go for a young player that they feel can be the future and then trade the pick or acquire, or maybe they go Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter? Like, really, they could go in a million different directions. So I'm really interested to see what this brass thinks is the best way to go.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's some reservations I have with, um, not necessarily the who's, because let's be honest. I mean, it's Brinker running the show, right? He's gonna make the decision. But I do worry about how streamlined the decision making will be with this many voices in a sort of way. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And especially, even though the NFL isn't like other sports, it isn't like the NBA. The free agency process is about the fastest you have to move as a front office. But if you look at other sports, you look at soccer and how you have to be a little bit quicker and more malleable with your targets, and free agencies twice a year instead of once. But their structure adheres to that, and you got to be real streamlined with your decision making, right? So that's something I worry about here with us, because it's a little different than what people do around the league. So Brinker still has the decision making, but if he's going to really have all those voices in his ear, how much of that is he going to really be able to do himself, decision making wise, and trust his gut and stuff? So that's up to him, though.
You know what I think that is, though, B. Will? I think we're maybe still overblowing like he's the final decision maker thing. He is, in a sense that directionally, Brinker has the final say of where the direction of the football program is going. So I think now the difference is, sure, if there's like a final tiebreaker type of thing, then I'm sure he would be the final voice to say yay or nay. But truly, it's Borgonzi going and doing it, right? And Brinker's just kind of like overseeing the vision, right? So they're having conversations. I think they're having conversations together, and then Borgonzi's like, okay, I understand the vision. We're aligned here. I'm going to go and do it. So I think he's going to empower Borgonzi to make those decisions as the general manager. I think that, if they're split in the room and it's like, shit, do we go quarterback or not? Then Brinker's going to be like, we have to go quarterback or no, or whatever. So I think we're kind of overblowing the like final decision maker thing to where nobody else truly has a say. I think it's going to be a group thing. I think if in a rare case, which from what I can tell, it's pretty darn rare, where there's like a true split in the room, or like the quarterback thing. Like, let's talk about that for a second. Whether this team goes quarterback or not, I think is going to be a Brinker-led decision, right? Let's just say that the internal conversations are, guys, we strongly need to consider trading out of this pick. We need to keep it close to our chest. We need to make sure that we maintain the leverage. And if we get XYZ, then we should take the trade and be prepared to pivot.
Who
And
sets that direction?
And I'm sure, right. Well, directionally, I'm just saying, like, I think Brinker might be like, hey, no, like, we're going young quarterback here. That's where we're going.
So
Who we choose, let's do it together. I think it's kind of like that. You know what I'm saying? Because Miss Amy's going to be like, no, go get me a young star. We have to build something here. Like,
but
Sam Darnold's not
you
going to
can
cut it. Whatever.
see all we're doing is we're lending ourselves and setting the Titans up to a more corporate structure. That's all it is. Yep. But the guy at the top still makes all the damn decisions, and he's still responsible, and his balls are still on the line at the end of the day. He can let the other guy make the who's and the, all that is a little, I'm not going to say it's minute, but Borgonzi knows what Brinker wants. In my opinion, and from what I see, Borgonzi reports to Brinker. Brinker is going to be the one setting the direction. So Brinker is the one making the decisions. Borgonzi is going to, that's just what it is. We can split hairs and we can say, well, we got this person over here, this person over here. They all funnel up to Chad Brinker.
I think it's just like a vision thing, though, B. Will. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the specific. I'm not
using those buzzwords and shit.
It's not. Well, it's not like every single decision is funneled through Brinker and he says yay or nay, right? It's like it's a front office decision. It's Mike Borgonzi leading the charge. It's an agreed vision from Brinker, and if something pressing or more extreme comes up, then Brinker comes in and like says, yes or no, tiebreaker situation. I don't think it's every decision Borgonzi being like, how about this? And Brinker goes, or hey, is this cool? And Brinker's like, I don't think it's necessarily that. I think that what his job is that Miss Amy wants nothing to do with decision making, right? She wants someone that she can trust to have the final say of her football team that's not going to derail shit. And that's who Chad Brinker is. She chose him. Chad, you are my voice. You have the ownership's authority of final say if everybody who we employ starts to make a decision that you don't believe is in the best interest of the team. And so he has his GM. It's his job. He's empowered his people. Do your thing. You don't hire somebody that you don't align with initially anyway. And so he's going to hire him. And if there's any, uprooting crazy decisions that need to happen, or maybe they love both quarterbacks. Let's just say this is the scenario. They love both quarterbacks, but they can't make a decision. They get really close to draft day. And then Brinker just says, you know what, guys, I'm calling, like, we're going Cam. I know this room loves Shador and this side of the room loves Cam. I'm putting my foot down. I think we need to go Cam, right? So that's what I think it is. It's not necessarily like he's just looking over, Borgonzi's just looking over his shoulder like, oh my gosh, every decision he's saying yes or no to. It's just Miss Amy saying, this is my guy. You have my authority in that room. If you need to put your foot down, I trust your opinion. You're the guy. I think that's what it is. And then the media, in lieu of the Rand firing, like, in the fan base is like, oh, well, because Burke Nihill misspoke because she's making him speak for every time something happens. He overspoke and was like, nope, Chad's the guy, 100%. He's a man. And then now we're all like, okay, well then why are we hiring a GM? And then Spiral Town, So I just don't play that much into it, I guess.
I'm not saying that Brinker's going to be a guy that's even going to micromanage the decisions, but the big decisions, the big dog makes that decision. That's fact. It's a corporate structure. So you can let the guys underneath it make who are you taking in the second round? Who are you taking in the third round? Brinker's going to get his guy in that first round. I don't give a damn how many assistant GMs, quarterback coaches. I don't give a damn who they bring in there. We're getting Brinker's guy at 1-1, guaranteed. He makes the decisions. He's the top of the structure. He's the top of the leadership structure. He's held responsible for it. He's going to get his guy. He's not going to say, okay, Borgonzi, you think we can? No, hell no.
I think he does that through the whole process because the odds of that they agree are pretty high, right? So, like, they even said it. They said it. And it is true because I'm not saying I've been anywhere near an NFL front office room, but I have been in a sports franchise where those types of conversations were happening. And that's just what happens. Like when you have a group decision, 9 times out of 10, the pro evaluation of top talent are close. It's like it's really, really similar. So odds are a lot of this front office is going to agree on the direction they need to go. They just might disagree. They just might have one guy higher than another. And then you kind of have to go back and forth and say, okay, collectively, are we higher on Shador versus Cam and why? And then here's all the reasons. And then they're going to go back and forth over the next 2 months or a month and a half or whatever it ends up being, right? 2.5 months. They're going to go back and forth. And those guys are going to slide up and down on the board for that reason. And so if they get too close to April and they're split or it's a close situation, then the entire time, you're right. Chad is probably going, look, I'm going to let these guys talk all they want, but the pick is going to be Cam Ward. And I'm probably not going to be swayed. But he won't say that. And they won't be like leading conversations like that. It'll just get close to time. And if they remain split and he can't kind of like coerce the group a little bit to decide, get closer to his decision, then at that time, I think there's a good chance that would be a situation where he goes, guys, I'm going to make the call here. It has to be this. So I agree with you mostly in that the guy who's truly in charge is going to always be in charge or make their decision. But there's a good chance that he won't have to, swing that gavel because the people in the front office that he brought together are like they're analytics driven, right? So like Scott Cohen's going to come in here, Chad Brinker has the system, and they're going to put these things together, and then it's going to be a calculated decision. Now, it's a much tougher decision, I think, at the 1/1 versus like the 6th overall pick or the 22nd overall pick. These guys have a much tougher decision to make because you're right. Chad Brinker, ultimately, it's his job. It's Callahan's job. It's Borgonzi's job if they somehow swing and miss and just screw this up.
This guy, Callahan, he ought to be worried too, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, he's first on the chopping block.
He has no decision-making powers. No, nothing. I don't even think he can hire his position coaches down there. It looks like
he's done a pretty good job of that, starting with special teams. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm saying I don't know if he can, if he's doing it. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, they could have brought Keg Ackerman back. He's over there in Miami now, is what it looks like.
Yeah, that's insane too. But yeah, I mean, it's just I'm not. I say all that, and another negative I got towards it is it's just I see it for what I think it is, and it really mirrors a corporate leadership structure to me. And all these extra people are extra points of liability, and that can be axed to prop Brinker in power. That's what I see it as. I don't trust Brinker one bit, especially after these last 2 months. I don't trust a word he says, but that's what I see it as. On the flip side of the coin, with this leadership structure, the positive that it can lend itself to is that we can really foster an environment to get some young creative minds and young talent in here with all these different sham positions, whatever the hell you call it, all these different positions. You can really get some young talent in here if you do it right and really develop a carousel of front office men and talismen that go around the league. And we really have a lot of good relationships from that. So that's the one positive I see in it.
I agree with both of you guys to an extent. And just like our screens, I think I'm a little bit more in the middle. I don't think Borgonzi would have taken this job if he knew ahead of time Brinker was going to be overshadowing him the entire time.
Right.
This is the guy that's turned away positions last season in this GM process. So I see him.
He could have just stayed a champion, right? Like he could have just stayed in Kansas City.
Ambition's a mofo.
It is. I think Brinker more so than anything, he's going to be the talking head for Amy, and I think he could even survive another regime change.
I think
he will.
I think he's separated from that. So I think Mike Borgonzi, and he talked about it in the presser too. He says on the 101, I'm the one filling in the draft card, and I don't think he would have accepted the position if they hired him and said, "Hey, you have to go quarterback with the 101." If he doesn't have conviction in the pick, which I'm not saying they won't go quarterback, but I don't feel like they would have pigeonholed him and say, hey, it's Cam Ward or Shador Sanders, or we don't want you in the building kind of thing. I think they're going to have that collaboration like they preached all last year as well. And I think that's going to speak in the top down. They're going to have these other talking heads in the room, like the guys we mentioned that they brought in. And Borgonzi talked about it a little bit in his interview with Zach Lyons yesterday, where he said he was a part of that regime change over kind of in Kansas City. He came in from New England, and it was a lot of similar type of guys coming in that were all coming from different systems. And they had that initial meeting when they built their big board, and somebody may have seen it different, or they would have done things a different way, but they worked together and kind of put that together and had their own style of creating a big board going forward. So I don't think Borgonzi is a guy that's going to come in and say, this is my way or the highway type of stuff. I think they're going to have some collaboration there. And then come April, this is going to be set in stone after the combine, in my opinion. They'll have these individual interviews. And the more I hear both Brinker and Borgonzi talk, I think trade down is a very big possibility. And I could definitely see that happening, especially with the Giants sitting there at 3. I think they have strong convictions on Shedeur Sanders, and I think they don't want to miss out on that. And they just let Danny Dimes go, and he's walking out the building. If the Titans don't go quarterback in the first round, is the season a wash, or what does that look like for us? Are they bringing in the free agent quarterback in a Danny Dimes, a Justin Fields, a Russell Wilson, and then looking later in the draft,
Matthew Stafford,
who we've talked about
That's
for
the
months
only
at this
name I
point in
want.
time.
And if it ain't him, it's a waste of time. I'll be honest. I mean, no, seriously.
In the same boat.
No, seriously. I'm dead serious. If we do not draft a quarterback high in this draft, we've just watched bad quarterback play all year. I'm not watching another year of it.
Year? Did you mean the past couple decades?
Well, I'm trying to be
Danny
more
had some
optimistic.
good
We're not in the
seasons.
middle.
Since this
We're
guy?
not in the middle of the season. The pessimist is out. I can bring him back, but I'm just saying this
We can
past
switch
year
roles.
we can. But this past year we've seen just horrific quarterback play, and I will not watch a season of it again. I promise you, I will not. If we don't draft one of Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward and give this organization a sliver of hope, or find a way to bring in a guy like Matt Stafford, I'd even take Kirk Cousins. I'd watch Kirk Cousins because it'd be exciting. He'll throw 3 picks and he'll throw 4 touchdowns. I'll watch that.
Bring in Jameis at that point in time.
I'll watch Jameis too. So bring it. That's for entertainment. But bring in the top 3 guys, as I said. And if they don't, and they bring in a guy like Daniel Jones or even Russell Wilson, better take Callahan behind the shed. Daddy too.
I think we have to realize with quarterbacks, and I know we've come out of a great season of rookie quarterbacks this past year with Jaden Daniels making it to the conference championship and Bo Nix having a great year as well. But that's not more often than not. Rookie quarterbacks usually struggle, especially in their first year.
Yeah.
And as Titans fans, we talk about it, and if we draft a quarterback, we still might be as bad as we were this season. And if that's
100%.
the case,
Yep.
Callahan's probably out the door, and they're probably having a regime change up front. That's how I see it. If they start off really slow, I could definitely see him walking after this season, or if not in the middle of the season. If we were to trade back with, say, the Giants, and they struggle, and they're in that same predicament, and the Titans bring in a free agent of some sort, you're going to have their first-round pick next season. You might have the 101, and this is the route that Chicago took. They had the 101, they trade back, and then Carolina, they grab Bryce Young, and he had a good season this year to an extent. But I think everybody in this room would agree that they'd take Caleb Williams over Bryce Young, no?
Sure.
So I could definitely see that breaking down. And maybe they improve and they are in that 6th pick like they were last season. Maybe you get a Jaden Daniels. Maybe you're in that realm. And we talked about it last week. The first quarterback taken in the draft usually don't work out. And even though we're talking about Caleb Williams, that could definitely go that direction. I think building long-term, I think that's the best plan. There's that old research topic of with the children, and they go, hey, you can have 1 marshmallow now, or you can have 2 if you wait 5 minutes. As fans, I think the realistic possibility of waiting 5 minutes, you might not like it today, but I think you could like it long-term. And then that's when you come away with a Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, one of these other great cornerstone pieces, and you build around for that rookie quarterback to come in.
Hey,
The more I think about it, I think this is the way.
Here's the thing. You can build around a cornerstone, or you could build around the damn studs of the house. The quarterback's studs of the house. I want the studs of the house. So,
100%. Like, this is I'm glad that you're taking this stance, Jake, because I think I couldn't be possibly heavier on the other side. Like, I couldn't be more convicted about a quarterback pick at the 1-1, because that's ultimately the conversation, right? It's like, do you go after the quarterback in hopes that is your foundational piece and then you build around them? Or do you build the roster up when you have a lot of holes like the Titans do, and then you add a quarterback piece once that roster is a little bit more ready to go? And to be completely honest with you, I cannot stress it enough that the quarterback, if the quarterback is the guy, then he elevates the entire roster. And I've said this a couple of times on this show, so I'll spare you guys the long and winded. But essentially, he makes the players on your team better, not just mentally, but literally from every day, from practice and study and the physical training part, everything. When you know you have a guy, when you're Buffalo's Bill players, when you're Kansas City Chief players, when you're guys, Baltimore Ravens players, when you know that your guy is a stud, and when he touches the field, he impacts the game every single time, that changes the dynamic of the team. So to me, you don't necessarily have to, or you can build the roster around a quarterback all you want. But if you sign a Kirk Cousins or a Sam Darnold or somebody who we know is not going to get them over the hump, then what are you doing really? You're becoming a good football team, but not good enough to be great, right? You're essentially putting us back into the Ryan Tannehill situation where he is a good enough quarterback to pilot the team, do well, get us to the playoffs, heck, even win a game or two, but not get over the hump. You want to know why? Because you have to have that elite player, that guy who creates opportunity, the guy who is dynamically changes the game in order to get over the hump. And we have not ever had that player since this guy, since Air McNair. And so if you're sitting at the 101, you don't have to spend any extra capital. You don't have to wonder what next year is going to be. You don't have to assume that Arch Manning, like, there's a chance Arch Manning doesn't come out. There's a chance Nico doesn't come out. Like, there's a chance Drew Aller doesn't come. And you see what I'm saying? So, like, the whole kick the can and build your roster thing is relevant if this team has had success at quarterback in recent time outside of Ryan Tannehill. I guess you could call that success because he was good. But my point is that you haven't been able to draft a guy that's dynamic, right? You have and I made this argument during the season when me and B-Will talked about it, where you have this new stadium coming and I don't know, this is new information. We have this information now because the season's over. The Titans are the least viewed football team in the entire NFL. 5.4 million concurrent. Yes, because the team's terrible. So here's the difference, guys. Not only are we talking about the fact that you haven't been able to fill the quarterback position and get a dynamic franchise player there, but more importantly, your football team is void of star players. Like, your biggest star is a defensive tackle. Like, Jeffrey Simmons is great. He's a good dude. He's an awesome player, but that doesn't sell sponsorships. Like, you have 5.4 million. You're the worst viewed team in the NFL. That starts impacting the business of the football team. You have a multi-billion-dollar stadium going up in the fourth fastest growing city in the nation. You cannot have this. It can't stay the same. So I promise you, Miss Amy is probably not saying you need to go pick so-and-so or so-and-so, but she's saying to Chad, we're sitting here. We traded the last time we were here. We traded out of that pick. We got some great players, but it did not change and format the direction of the football team. We have an opportunity to not spend any more draft capital and pick the future of our franchise here. And it's like, just do your absolute due diligence, make a pick on one of these guys, and let's move forward. Because at this point, bro, this like Kirk Cousins shit, it's not gonna roll.
She ain't even got to say all that. All she has to do, and I could see her doing. This is why I talk about the corporate leadership structure. All she has to do is go to Brinker and say, "These are the 3 pillars that I will be grading you on. I need to see the commercial revenue grow. I need to see viewership and attendance grow. And we need to win as a football team and have a future. What solves all three of them problems?
You're right. Yeah, that probably is exactly what she's saying to him, actually.
That's the conversation. Yeah. So it's quarterback. It's simple.
She's telling him who to pick without telling him who to pick.
Exactly. But Brinker's doing the same thing to Borgonzi. That's the point I'm making. Is that Borgonzi is Brinker's the guy making the damn decisions. All he's got to do is say that, and he ain't told him who to pick, but he's told him who to pick. That's how the corporate leader. That's how that corporate leadership structure to me looks like it's going to work.
Because can we talk this through, Jake? Like let's talk through your side too, because trading down, acquiring assets, and still drafting one of the best players in the draft at a position of need, whether it's Carter or Travis Hunter, for example, that's still in some scenarios a slam dunk like solution, right? Like that's still a good move.
It ain't bad.
But let's go back. Let's go back to 2016. Who do we think won that trade between the Titans and the Rams? Who was the owner then? It was Avey, right?
The Rams slam dunked it because they drafted a player that they traded for and then won a Super Bowl. And before they won the Super Bowl, they went to the Super Bowl with that player.
They lost a Super Bowl with Jared Goff, and then they traded him because he wasn't good enough.
Young player, Jake.
They came in. Made it to a conference championship.
Football team. The Rams were the worst football team in the league.
Today,
they drafted a quarterback and then they went to a Super Bowl.
Would you prefer Jared Goff or Derrick Henry, and then Jonnu Smith and Austin Johnson and Corey Davis? I get three of the ladders didn't work out.
Two of those guys were
when
great.
You look at that, two of those grades were great.
But how many was it? 5
Austin
picks?
Johnson, it was 4 picks. I think.
So who would you have wanted, Jake? Would you have wanted the quarterback or you wanted to build the team?
I would have I think the Titans won that trade.
No.
No. 100%.
It resulted in 2 Super Bowl appearances and 1 Super Bowl win, that trade for the Rams.
I thought you were about to prove our point for us.
No.
And you really did.
No. Look, Jared Goff still isn't that guy.
They got Derrick Henry and they got Kevin Byard from that trade. Those are Ring of Honor players. Derrick Henry, arguably the greatest running back in modern football. You might not even be able to argue it unless Saquon goes on a tear here. But it's so great. Yes, I'll give you that. Those are fantastic players. But Derrick Henry was a second-round pick. So it's not like you traded for a haul of first-round picks and got this guy in the top 5 because of it. Your top 5 pick was Corey Davis, who had a good end of his career with the Titans, but was not good, was barely better than Treylon Burks in his first couple of seasons. That trade resulted in Jared Goff helping them go. You can say like Jared Goff, yes, he didn't win the Super Bowl with the Rams, but he took them from the worst team in football to in the Super Bowl in a calendar year, basically. It was impressive, the resurgence that happened for the Rams organization with that player. Then they traded that player for another player and then won the Super Bowl because of it.
Jake, I'm so glad you brought this up because it lends its there's some parallels, right?
Jake's like, shit, this is backfiring.
There's some parallels. No. And I'm not saying that Callahan is even cut from he's not even from the same country of cloth that McVay came from. But that stability at quarterback allowed the coach to implement his system exactly how he wanted it. And look what happened.
It was good enough to lose to Kansas City, or was it New England?
It was good enough to make it where?
It was good enough to lose to an AFC contender who the Titans also lost to.
But it was good enough to make it where?
So if the Titans were in the NFC, they would have been in the Super Bowl, no?
What was it good enough to get some stability at the quarterback position and allow the coach to really do his damn job?
It wasn't stability, though. That's why they moved him. He wasn't good enough
stability,
to win.
Especially compared to what it was.
They needed
Matthew Stafford.
No. They went from last place to in the Super Bowl.
That's stability.
That's stability.
Off McVay.
No.
Jared Goff had the worst rookie campaign out of like the past decade, and then turned it around in year 2 with McVay. The Titans had Jeff Fisher at the point in time.
Oh, yeah. It gave McVay
that
little bit of stability.
No, Jeff Fisher was fired by the Rams when they made that pick. It was Bones. It was John Fossil, our new special teams coach, who was the interim head coach, going into that pick?
Because Jeff Fisher would have picked Derrick Henry 1-on-1. Eddie George.
Back
We need a running back in here.
Good process with bad results. Bad process with good results. At the end of the day, I think it was good process. It just didn't work out because you grabbed Corey Davis there at 5. It wasn't great. And then you get a Dory Jackson after that. Also, it wasn't great. There was talent on the board, and they chose to go against contrarian with how people viewed that draft class even. You could come away, and that wasn't a very talented draft class in general, but I don't think at the end of the day, Jared Goff is why they made it to the Super Bowl.
That draft and this
and
draft has a lot
to
of
be
parallels.
clear, it wasn't his rookie year that happened, right? It was the following year because he also didn't start that entire time either.
We thought Carson Wentz at that point in time was better than Jared Goff.
Well, I mean, early in the career, he did have a better start to his career.
Yeah, we just can't be revisionist.
Where did it get him? He's chilling on his couch right now.
I'm sorry, Jake, but you proved our point. Like you stick and you pick a quarterback, the quarterback that dynamically impacts the game, and then that helps you build around. Because here's the thing. Hold on, can we slam a timeout really quick? I'm going to use one of my 3 timeouts. Okay. At the start of last offseason, when we thought Will Levis was going to be the guy, were we all not praising how good this roster could be?
It is. Roster ain't as bad as people say it is.
The roster is not as bad as we're saying here. Everyone's like, we got holes everywhere. It's like, well, we have holes just like every other bad football team.
We have holes at premium positions is the issue.
We're
good at places that don't matter.
There are, but I can tell you right now that even if they traded down and drafted one of those positions, you would still have holes, right? And you would have the biggest hole at the biggest position, which is quarterback. And even if you fill it in the meantime with a Cousins or whoever else, which by the way, these would be massive contracts. So you're talking about available cap space. The Titans do have projected around $55 million, but if you fill that with a massive quarterback, a free agent quarterback salary, then you have way less money to play with. You know, obviously free agency isn't crazy this year, but regardless, you still have to do some roster filling here. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. If the Titans were picking 3 or 4, then Jake, this conversation is far more palatable and it makes far more sense because you're just not within striking distance. Right now, you get to pick the quarterback you want. You could choose either guy and you have to spend nothing extra. It's going to cost you no extra. So all these top 100 picks that Borgonzi and Chad Brinker are saying they need to have over the next couple of years, cool. Trade down from 34. Acquire a couple more, third round picks or whatever. Like, do that, whatever. It's just the thing is different. If you have the quarterback in the wings, if you have a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders and they just get to sit, bring in Jameis, bring in Derek Carr, I don't care. Go get a veteran you feel comfortable with. Make yourself mildly competitive. Start turning the table here, and your franchise quarterback that is sitting on the bench is going to get your fans excited. You're going to sell jerseys. People are going to show up to games even when you suck because there's a chance that Cam or Shedeur is going to get in the game and start lighting it up. It is the hope that this franchise desperately needs. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here.
It's not just a quarterback that you're drafting at 1-on-1 here, though. You're drafting a leader. You're drafting somebody that's going to put asses in seats. Somebody that's going to solve a lot of problems.
It changes the dynamic of your franchise.
And it's a lottery. At the end of the day, really, it's a glimmer of hope. And people do crazy things for a glimmer of hope. Abdul Carter is not a glimmer of hope.
I do get it doesn't look good this season. I don't think, regardless of who the Titans draft, they're going to be a playoff caliber team. And I think we all agree upon that. And when it comes down to it, I think free agency is used.
But if we get Shedeur, Cam Ward,
with the division we're in, we have a chance to win the division.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll be in the wild card conversation. It's either win the division or we're out. And that really comes down to what Houston does this season.
Which they could implode.
Jacksonville, I mean, we all saw the rookie head coach's little memo earlier this week. But
it's a clown show down there.
Duval. But yeah, I think that goes back to what a poverty franchise does, which the Titans are at this point in time. When I think about Cleveland and what they've done. I see that as good process. They're still grabbing the quarterback. They're still hoping there, but it just hasn't worked out. And I mean, we've all seen the jersey with just another name scribbled out at the quarterback position from Johnny Manziel. And I think Shedeur and Cam Ward, they just aren't as talented as this past year's draft class. And
oh, Jake, not you too, man.
Everybody's
Hold on. I just want
everybody's
just a
on
quick
coach.
comment on this, just because it's not you. It's literally so many people. Draft experts. Like, look, dude, I keep hearing like, oh, Cam Ward and Shedeur would be quarterbacks 7 and 8 in that if they were drafted last year. Can we stop, bro? Can we stop pretending like all of us had Bo Nix as a bona fide first-round pick? Can we all stop that we had Jaden Daniels as the best quarterback in that draft? Can we stop that we knew that Drake was going to pop as quickly as he did? It's all BS, man.
Nobody knows shit about quarterbacks.
Bro, I'm so frustrated.
Yeah,
you know how many
are
people had Bo Nix as like a 2nd and 3rd round pick last year? He's going to be the second best quarterback. He was the second best quarterback from this draft class. That draft class was an absolute anomaly. But let's not sit here and pretend that now that we know what we know a year later, like, oh, these guys aren't even going to. Bro, you can't say that. We haven't seen Cam play in the league, and we haven't seen Shedeur play in the league. What happens if Cam is as dynamic as many of us think he is, and he goes out there and mobs? Then what? You're going to put him behind, I don't know, whatever quarterback 6 bum that was drafted last season? Like, come on. It's just like, I just can't stand like the smoke and mirrors that happens early in this process. And I'm not pitchforking hard for those guys. But what I can say is that I've watched over 180 of Cam Ward's throws, and I would not say that he is a quarterback 7. And it's like arbitrary BS because all of these guys aren't in the same draft class. Cam and Shedeur are now. Those guys were drafted then. So saying like this guy's QB7, QB8, like, it's just like it paints the wrong narrative. It tells you, or it tells everybody that, oh, you can't draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders in the first round. You can't do it because they're quarterback 7 and 8. If you can include last year. Is anybody talking about how Shedeur Sanders is the most accurate thrower of all those quarterbacks? Or do we want to like go that route? Do we want to talk about how Cam Ward has, touchdown records that none of those other quarterbacks have? Like, we could play this game, but it just doesn't make any sense. Like, I hate comparing draft class to draft class because it's like, it's literally arguing semantics that don't even matter because you don't have the ability to draft all those guys. It's these guys, but you also can't, like, saying that takes these guys and takes away from them saying like, these are not capable first round picks. And it's all smoke and mirrors because the Titans are sitting at 1, and it's all about what's getting put out into the media. What do fans believe? What's the narrative? And it's all narrative painting. So it's not you, Jake, but it's like, this is like the 7th time I've heard that in the past like 3 days. And every time I'm pulling out the hair that I don't have on my head because I'm just like, it's so dumb. Because then I'm going on TikTok or whatever, like I'm talking about the team, and I have thousands of people being like, dog, it's not worth the first round pick. I'm like, okay, have you watched 180 throws from Cam Ward, and have you watched 100 plus throws from Shedeur? Because until you do, then we can't have a conversation because you don't know what you're looking at. You just know what you're seeing on Twitter. You know what you're seeing, the highlights you're watching on YouTube. And that's not enough to evaluate a player. So I'm just like, I'm trying to do it the right way as a fan of a team who's sitting in position to take one of these guys. But I'm literally getting like, I know what I'm seeing, but on the outside, it's like all the noise of just like, doesn't match what my eyeballs are showing me. You see what I'm saying? So I'm just like, I get so fired up about it because I'm like, tons of friends and family and everybody's like, well, you got to trade down. There's no quarterbacks to take. And I'm just like,
I think it's just, it's so cliche and it's, a lot of it's cliche. Just trade down. Just draft edge. Just draft receiver. It's just really cliche, and it doesn't lend itself to real life. And real life is that the commercial revenue has to go up, seats got to get filled, and there has to be more hope. Edge, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter does not do that. That's simple.
I think you want to fill seats, you want to put
business.
asses in seats, it's win games. And
no,
if they don't do
because we didn't have it. We didn't have asses filled when we was winning games, did we?
You have to win big games. Let me restate that. The regular season doesn't mean shit. It doesn't. You win Super Bowls, you win conference championships, you get to those big games. That's when fans want to start paying to attend those regular seasons down the line. And I think we were kind of on the precipice of that in 2021, and it kind of fell apart. So,
Because of what, Jake?
Bad processes with John Robinson, in my opinion.
No.
You trade AJ Brown, you trade all these players away.
What was the root? What was what caused the house of cards to fall? It wasn't because we didn't have enough edge pressure.
Are we alluding back to the quarterback position? Yes.
It all comes back to the quarterback, Jake. But here's the thing,
Ryan Tannehill was a bad idea.
In your defense, though, Jake, you want to know why, or to your point, I should say, and all Titans fans who are in the camp of we need to fill holes on this football team, what I would say to you, another reason why the quarterback makes sense is because here's the thing. Here's what Miss Amy and the Titans organization can't have happen. You don't have a quarterback. You draft Abdul Carter. You add some picks, and your team improves on the roster side. You don't get the quarterback situation, or you don't have the future of the quarterback situation in place. You win 7 games, and then you just have a stinker. And then guess what? You don't know what's happening the following year. You pick 15th in the draft. Arch Manning comes out, and there's 4 quarterback needy teams in front of you, and you're not even going to get to sniff Arch Manning's jock strap. Okay, then what? Where then, guys? Okay,
then you
we
got
have
to
a
make a
better
decision
roster.
you don't
Then
want to make.
what are we doing?
And you draft a quarterback at 15.
But if you draft a quarterback now and you go into the season knowing you are not going to be a playoff team, knowing that you're likely going to need to kind of kick the can a little bit, you'll be better, you'll be improved.
Mm-hmm.
But you know that next year's going to be a send it year. And then you have another offseason with these new guys. But the difference is you got the quarterback, and he's ready to deploy the year you open your stadium. That changes everything. And you still get to tank without tanking. You see what I'm saying? So we actually get 2 more years to build this team, and you have the quarterback ready in the wings. That is a drastically different plan and future security than going into this year saying, hey, we're going to add players, and then hopefully we can make it work for next season for a quarterback situation. If you're telling me that you add a player like Abdul Carter, who drastically improves your defensive line, we would all agree, right? And then you add more pieces. They're not going to stand idly by and do nothing at right tackle. So they're going to find some sort of solution, whether it's high draft pick or whatever, a free agent, whatever. So this team is going to improve again, right? You're going to bring some sort of quarterback in if you're not drafting one. Maybe it's Cousins, maybe it's Derek Carr, maybe it's Sam Darnold, maybe it's there's several options. That quarterback is not going to be bad enough to lose you to only win 3 games. So what exactly are we talking about doing here? You see what I'm saying? Take the path that gives you the future, secures your future, and allows you to tank without tanking, and everybody would be perfectly fine with it. You want to know why? Because our future is right there on the bench. This team could suck ass next year and we would all be okay because our future is sitting right there on the bench. And guess what? Then you get another offseason and you're not pressured to find the guy. You're not pressured to sign the big free agent, and you're feeling okay from the business standpoint going in. And I'm not saying that one of these 2 guys is the pick over the other, though I'm leaning Cam Ward a little bit. But imagine it's Shador with the star power that he's associated with. You're selling sponsorships just based on that brother's back, the name on his back. So I'm not saying you take him for that reason, but what I am saying is that to me is the clear movement for the future to build, and you're okay with tanking another season and having another year to build the team, which is really going to do the job of filling your roster, not just in 1 year and hoping that the quarterback is bad enough, just a bona fide tank year for the next kicking the can for next year's draft class it just doesn't compute with me at all, guys, at all.
No. Important correction earlier. MB is correcting us. Fisher was the coach in St. Louis when they drafted Goff. They still had Goff in St. Louis. He was right. So we were not correct.
Was it Fisher who drafted him?
Fisher drafted him.
I think going back to your guys.
Thank you, MB.
All I ask for the Titans is to have conviction if the quarterback pick is the pick to be made. If you go into this and go, you know what, I'm not sure this is the guy, but we're going to take a shot on him anyways, I don't want that. I want you to just know by your heart. I want you to have strong conviction on it. And then if not, that's when you're moving back. because to you guys' point, I think we go back to that Corey Davis draft when they had Adoree and all of that draft capital, and they didn't get a guy, and they got 2 premium positions that didn't work out. At that point in time, you had draft capital to move up. So say, for instance, they do trade back this year. They acquire the 3rd pick this year. They get a star. They acquire the Giants pick next season, and they bring in a free agent. They have a 7-9-ish record. You're picking around that 15-ish mark. The Giants probably are not going to be very good next season. They're probably picking top 5. You have the ability to leverage those 2 first-round picks to move up, because there will be another, say, New England Patriots this year where they're sitting there early in the draft, great capital at 4, the ability to probably grab a quarterback in future years if they wanted to. They're going to be looking to move back. You'll have that capital to fire and go get your guy if you want. But at that same time, you're going to have a more stable base around him. And for me, this is really finding out if Callahan's the guy or not. I need to see this scheme operate, because if not, I want to bring in somebody else that can pick their guy, because I don't want to happen. And my biggest fear is they draft Shedeur Sanders, who many have Cam Ward higher. And I'm getting closer to that myself, that I prefer Cam Ward. But say they grab Shedeur, Callahan's not the guy. They move on from him this season. You bring in a new head coach, and he goes, Shedeur doesn't fit my scheme. I want my new guy. And then you're right back to square one. And that's what we see so far often with so many of these other bad franchises, like the Giants, like the Browns, like the New York Jets, and so on and so forth. That's my biggest fear as a Titans fan.
Well, look, they wouldn't have retained Brian Callahan if they didn't. You think that they honestly didn't know that they were going to be looking at a new quarterback? Like, Brian Callahan said it in like week 9. He said, we know, literally verbatim quote, we basically know what we have at the quarterback position. They knew they were moving on from Will Levis earlier than we did, really. And at this point, the quarterback, and
you did
earlier than I did. That's true. Yeah. Let me not bunch you with us. I'm sorry.
There was a glimmer of hope in that time frame.
I don't think so. I think B-Will was on after like week 2.
I was done in week 2.
He was there before.
He was
there after the Chicago game.
But to respond to what you said on the trading up front, the problem is, it seems like everyone agrees, like the media or whatever, everyone's saying that next year's quarterback class is going to be better, right? If it is Nico and Arch coming out. The problem is the Raiders are going to be worse than the Titans. The Cleveland Browns are going to be worse than the Titans. Those 2 guys need quarterbacks, right? And they probably are not going to fill that void, maybe a veteran or whatever. So all I'm saying is that there are way too many unknown variables to say, all right, let's just kick the can, because we can probably, this franchise cannot afford we could probably anymore. It can't happen. And I agree with you. They should have conviction in one of these 2 guys. And I think they will, because they're not going to be listening to the smoke and mirrors, because they hold the keys. The Titans front office is in the driver's seat. They get to pick whoever they want, which means that they don't have to listen to the BS coming from every direction, the Dan Orlovskis, the whoever else's, right? Those people don't matter. What matters is the team, the franchise, the front office, the people who are controlling the next pick of the Titans. They have the number 1 pick. So all they have to do is close the blinds, shut the doors. Everybody who is for the team, all these guys are in there, the scouts, the new folks that got hired, they're all in the same room, and they watch ball, just like what I've been claiming to do, right? They watch ball, and then they look and say, look, both of these kids, they got it. They got that. Like, Borgonzi even kind of hinted at it a little bit. He's looking for the it factor, and then he's kind of spoke on Cam a little bit. So I think that they are convicted about it. And the Brian Callahan situation, by the way, if you draft a guy and there's a ton of hype and there's excitement in Nashville and jerseys are selling and just the whole aura of the team kind of shifts because you feel really good about your guy, then I don't think Miss Amy is going to be, or Borgonzi or Brinker are going to be quick to dismiss Brian Callahan, even if they have a less than favorable season, because they would have done that by now, because especially the fact that they knew they had the 1st round pick before they had to make a decision on firing him. So why would they, you see what I'm saying? They know what this looks like. They're not just going to dismiss, because if they were going to do anything, they were going to dismiss Brian Callahan, and whoever they brought in that was new was going to get a chance to develop the young quarterback. I don't think there's a chance. I think there's a very small chance, but I don't think there's a chance that Brian Callahan gets dismissed even after a less than ideal season if they have the young quarterback. I think they would retain him and give him a chance. Now, what could happen?
I think the team bus driver got more job security than Callahan. I'm be honest with you.
No, you have to develop the quarterback,
Have
right?
you met our owner? Rand Carthon was safe going into the offseason. Mike Vrabel was safe going into the offseason. John
Hey,
Robinson was not safe.
She might fire your ass.
We're talking about a franchise quarterback, though. The team, like you hoped Will was the guy. The difference is when you draft a Cam Ward or a Shador Sanders at the 101, they're the guy. Like, it's like you're committed for years. So I'm not saying that they would commit to him for years, but what I am saying is we would know if Brian Callahan could develop a quarterback, because they have to stick him around for that. They can't fire him halfway through and be like, okay, here's a new guy.
Yeah.
So anyways, we'll talk about that as we get to it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of, I get it on both sides of the aisle, like everybody who believes on both sides. But, ultimately this new front office, that's what they're tasked with. And, that's what we're going to judge them on. And they have some options, like free agency is going to come first. We'll know. I think there's a good chance that the Titans are going to sign or bring a notable vet free agent in. And then we're all going to go, see, no, the Titans aren't going to draft a quarterback. Now they're going to trade. It's going to happen, guys. And guess what? They're still probably going to draft a quarterback, as they should, by the way. That you should sign a guy, sign a bridge, whoever you want that to be, and then still bring in your young guy to sit for a year. So get ready for that. The boat's only going to get rockier as we get closer to April.
I'm so excited for free agent as we approach April, because it's going to be crazy. And there's going to be so much discourse on just the Titans media and fanship and everything. But I think it's going to do it for us today, guys. We appreciate everybody in the comments. I know we didn't get to a lot of them today, but shout out to Janko, MB. I know Amar was up there as well. We appreciate anybody and everybody. If you're checking us out for the first time, do us a favor. Head over to YouTube, type in Glory Days Sports, and find the YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. We're here live every Thursday morning, 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be doing more draft prep and content as we approach then and there. But do us a favor, hit that subscribe, and enter in that chance to win the signed Tajay Spears jersey giveaway. We can see about 95% of y'all aren't subscribed. So hit that. Do us a favor. Cost you nothing. We appreciate it. And then go check out that merch down below as well. Get you a cup, get you a hat, get you a mug. But we're going to get out of here. We appreciate everybody, and we will talk to y'all next week.